Hi, and welcome back to Superliminal. And today I have got a really fabulous guest in the form of Dan Willis, who's, as you'll have seen from the introduction, is someone I've been following for a few years, who's been working in the background and not so much in the background to really help with this whole disclosure process and bring to light some of the technologies that have been hidden from us for so long in terms of energy, healing, and so on. But Dan has got an incredible story, and I'm so honoured to have him on the show because I think in this time of the disclosure process, us stepping into our sovereignty, remembering who we are, and this control mechanism beginning to crumble all over the world, which we must never be complacent about. Now is the time for people like Dan, who've been working so hard behind the scenes, relatively speaking, for so long, to really step forward. And he's got some incredible connections with some of our off-world cousins, which I really cannot wait for you to hear about. But anyway, Dan, welcome to Superliminal, and it really is an honor to have you here. So thank you for joining us.
Franco, it's my pleasure to join your wonderful show here. And I hear you have a lot of questions, and I love questions. So we'll go into it. And it's interesting how life has one sequence of events after another that leads to something that many decades I thought was only science fiction is now the new normal.
Yeah, isn't it just? And I think even for me, even about 3, 4 years ago, to think that we'd be at the tipping point that we're at now, I would not that I wouldn't believed it, but I would. It was a big ask to think, in 2025, in terms of how things are about to change and what's coming our way in terms of revealing the truth about who we are. I think it's wonderful. I mean, I don't doubt it's going to be a really bumpy road. And that's okay because there's a lot of purging of the system still to do, shall we say? But yeah, so thanks again, Dan. I mean, I wondered if for anyone who doesn't know you, if you can give us a brief potted history of your journey that's led you to what you're doing now.
Yes, I've only done two conferences, and I had to prepare a slide presentation for that, and I can I can do a visual if you wish of a little bit of background.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Here we go. Okay, this was a presentation I did to help visually tell the whole story. This is how I got involved with the disclosure movement. Way back in 1969, I had a high-level top-secret security clearance in naval communications, and a ship that was off the coast of Alaska, a U.S. Navy ship, reported a disc that was about 70 feet in diameter off port bow and shooting off into space. This was a secret classified priority message going to the chief of naval operations. So, it made me wonder why we haven't had disclosure, why the government isn't disclosing this, and why the extraterrestrials aren't revealing themselves. As I researched back through time, I discovered that ever since 1955, presidents, CIA directors, heads of intelligence, it doesn't matter who you are, have been denied access to this. President Clinton, 93, his secret government in the government, and I don't control it, he said to Sarah McClendon. He had a CIA director try to look into it, James Woolsey. Said, I know this is real. I'm trying to figure out why the hell I can't get access to it, to Dr. Stephen Greer, who we brought into a 3-hour meeting, who became aware that, the CIA director is being denied access. And so he met with military advisors to advise him to start collecting witnesses. And that's essentially how I got involved. In 1993, I was looking for answers over the years, and I traveled outside of Area 51. It was a small group, about a dozen researchers. First time meeting with Bob Lazar, and no recordings were allowed, but I recorded the full 2 hours. His testimony has been 100% consistent over the years. What's significant about this meeting out there is that Area 51, the base, they went into a complete lockdown condition, sent out a security advisory to all base personnel. On this distribution list, they were revealing cosmic ops, magi ops. These were operations that were reverse engineering extraterrestrial spacecraft called Unacknowledged Special Access Project. Somehow, Dr. Greer acquired this classified document and took it to a Pentagon meeting with the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Vice Admiral Thomas Wilson, who he tried to look into it. This is going all the way back to 1955. Eisenhower, Carter, Kennedy, as we know, was denied access. All these presidents all the way. He was not only denied access, but he was threatened to drop it immediately or see an early retirement and lose rank. And he told Dr. Greer basically the witnesses that he has accumulated since 1993, that he has his permission to go before the mainstream media if they're willing to testify under oath, because this group is illegal. It's not constitutionally, overseen. So by the year 2001, he had collected over 500 military intelligence witnesses. I don't know if some of your viewers know about this event that happened in 2001. I was the sixth witness here of the 21 witnesses that went before 22 cameras in the mainstream media of the world. Each one of us stated we're willing to testify under oath before a congressional hearing. It's a penalty of perjury. And, things we were disclosing were incredible. Presidents, CIA directors being denied access. We have billions, probably trillions going into these unacknowledged special access programs. We have 0-point energy. We don't need these obsolete technologies. There's operations on the other side of the moon that have been bases that are there. Astronauts, when they went to the moon in 1969, were greeted by extraterrestrials. That's why they had to throw in some fake video footage that had to be created. And they had to censor what Neil Armstrong was saying. Oh my God, these babies are huge, sir. They're sitting on the far side of the crater looking at us. 57 different species had already been cataloged by 1989. Red glowing ET craft shut down nuclear launch facilities in rapid succession, like that, make them unlaunchable. U.S. Navy ships reporting disc-shaped craft and secret reports. Alien reproduction vehicles built back in the 1950s. The United States had anti-gravity developed by October 1954. 2 decades prior to that, Nazi Germany had anti-gravity developed by 1934. Werner von Braun, in his deathbed testimony, said they had a plan to have these false flag events. The next one was terrorists, which has happened 4 months later on 9/11, with the final planned event to be an alien invasion. I thought, how could this place was packed with reporters, 22 cameras here in the back row, one of the largest events in the history of the National Press. How could this not be a world-changing event?
Should have been on the front pages of every paper and every TV screen in the world.
You'd think, yeah. Fellow witness Mark McCandish, who was said to commit suicide before testifying at the June 2021 UFO UAP hearing, that we have anti-gravity technology developed, something that they continually deny. Here's an actual military photo of the alien reproduction vehicle. This was witnessed back in 1988, and this was antiques. These can go faster than the speed of light. So, if they had that technology, they'd be able to pull off, something like a false flag alien event, because everybody would think, oh, these must be aliens from outer space coming to attack us. So, inspired Dr. Michael Salla, who is a world-renowned exopolitics expert. inspired somebody over in your area,
I
Gary
remember, I
McKinnon.
remember, I remember this very well when it was in the news. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the poor guy. They want Bush administration wanted to put him away for 70 years in prison for disclosing the U.S. Navy's Solar Warden space program, which isn't that secret anymore. But yeah, he revealed the USSS LeMay and the Hillenkotter, which both happen to be MJ-12 members. Um, and so, myself, I used to be an ABC newsman. I was a broadcast engineer and ABC newsman for about 7 years, reading the reports, I get off the teletype from Associated Press and United Press International. Uh, I was taking note of how all the media all did in lockstep the same narrative and saying, oh, we are not alone. They want to have a congressional hearing on the reality of UFOs. Well, they completely sanitized all the explosive information that would have, got people's attention. And they call this a, quote, limited hangout. In other words, they just the part that's safe to be able to disclose to the public, but they suppress the then CBS in Los Angeles came down. I said, I'm not doing an interview with you unless I can say we have scientists that can prove before a congressional hearing we have 0-point energy. They promised up afterward, after about 40 minutes of an interview, the producer said, oh, I'm sorry, I never had this happen before. The higher executives made me cut that part out. So, it
Wow.
made me become aware that, the higher executives tied in with the intelligence community, they don't want the public to know that there's a solution. So, this is an interesting situation. A media company out of Hollywood wanted me to write an article about the control of media in regards to the UFO matter. And so, I was wondering, how did all this happen? How did that not become a world-changing event? Um, and I love the statement. It says, quote, when a well-packaged web of lies has been sold gradually to the masses over generations, that's the key, the truth will seem utterly preposterous and the speaker a raving lunatic. Because actually, as Dr. Greer has said, it keeps its own best secrecy because the full truth sounds like the most bizarre science fiction movie. And so I wrote this article for this company I titled it, Who Controls the Agreed Upon Reality Through the Mainstream Media and Why They Fear Disclosing the Truth About the Extraterrestrial Reality. And so I began to research, I spent decades researching, Franco, all these authenticated documents that came out and all the witness testimonies. And I started at the beginning of the 20th century to present day. And then when you start plugging in chronologically all this evidence, it starts to, you can't say you have all the answers, right? I mean, there's always more, but it starts to paint a highly probable picture of what's been hidden all these years. So things like a reptilian race called the Sakaar entered an alliance with the Nazi SS. This violated the Prime Directive, which was established with the Galactic Federation of Worlds, and so it allowed them
And
to enter.
the Prime Directive, Dan, being for anyone who's unsure of that.
The Prime Directive was actually introduced through the Office of Naval Intelligence, which was in contact with the Galactic Federation of Worlds, and been working since the early 1940s with them, and actually gave Gene Roddenberry the script. And Dr.
Yeah.
Michael Sal was able to match up almost perfectly. The Prime Directive is basically a very moral, wonderful document that establishes non-interference with, there's different stages of evolution. We're like a stage 2, but hidden behind the curtain we're a stage 3, which means we have interstellar capability and contact with other off-planet civilizations. So the thing is that the majority of our planet is thinking that we're at a stage 2 level, using gasoline, we need rockets to overcome gravity and so forth. While hidden behind the curtain, we have, this, like Gary McKinnon found out, the Solar Warden secret space program. We've been working with the Galactic Federation to help that development. So, of course, if they had anti-gravity developed back in 1934, they started developing a moon base on the moon.
So they,
And
they did a deal with the Sikaar reptilians and the Nebu Greys, basically, for technology, the Nazis.
yeah, the Sakaar worked in kind of an alliance with the Nebu, but essentially it was a Sakaar relationship with the Nazis that gave them underground bases in Antarctica to develop their secret space program. And this information was at the fall of the Soviet Union. Vladimir Terzirsky was able to recover these Nazi SS archives that revealed that their space program, that their crafts that they're building, and that they did go to the moon in 1942.
I mean, that's colossal, isn't it, given what the world has been told about Neil Armstrong?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's a crime against humanity. They had to keep it secret, and we'll go into that why they had to keep it secret, because there was some nefarious deals going on,
Sure.
um, all in the interest of national security, right? Um, Recovered documents show that the Nazis had planned to infiltrate into the U.S. and create a matrix of perception. Weltanschauungskrieg, it translates to worldview warfare. They planned to infiltrate in and hide their secret operations. Hitler, now President Trump is going to release the JFK files, which they were
Ooh,
partially released back in 2017 and revealed that Hitler was alive and well in Argentina.
hanging about
Um,
in Argentina, yeah.
Heinrich Himmler didn't take the cyanide cap, his double did. And 250,000 Germans, Reich top scientists, over 100 U boats, all escaped down to Antarctic Base 211 and to Argentina and operate from the underground from this point forward. Alan Dulles, who was head of OSS back then, he's infamous for the Nazi infiltration. He cuts a deal with General Reinhard Gehlen because they had all this intelligence on the Soviets that Truman was totally afraid of, President Truman. And so what they did is they made it as a bargaining chip on the table to bring in thousands of Nazi spies into the OSS, which turned in today's CIA.
Wow.
Operation Paperclip, everybody's pretty much familiar with this. Dulles orders the dossiers of all these Nazis that were once classified to be a menace to the security of the United States to be put into key positions and all their records cleansed.
So, Dan,
Um,
what we're looking at here really is that the Nazis didn't really lose the Second World War, did they?
They were very clever. They were very clever. They used psychological
Wow.
warfare. They were very clever. Um, and, they, working in alliance with the Rockefeller Foundation, they had the history. You think this would be against the law? They had the history of World War II rewritten. Yes, there's a lot of truth in what happened in World War II, but they removed is what you could call a limited hangout of history. They removed certain key areas, that is the Nazis escaping and down to Antarctica and the Operation High Jump, all these different things that happened that all were put secret, but school children would be be learning history and not have a clue of what the Nazis did. And, at the end of the war, the Nuremberg trials, which established the international law of informed consent, which is still legal, a legal law to abide by. No one should uh, be giving their consent unless they are fully informed. 1,600 former Nazi scientists, people responsible for murder, human experimentation, eugenics, are all brought into the newly formed CDC, Center of Disease Control. And the corporations that IG Farben was Hitler's largest financial backer and was split as being part of 13 corporations that are that you see on your television set all the time, advertising that we're familiar with. We know who they are. A very credible witness who's had much documentation to support who he was said that the Nazi scientists came over in paperclip. They took over the highest positions of the pharmaceutical industry, which is in their control today, he said. This is kind of an interesting note. My great-grandfather was the president of Homeopathic Medical Society that went up against Rockefeller back in the early 1900s, when Rockefeller was taking over control of the education school and demonizing people that are doing natural methods and stuff. So I kind of have it in my blood
Yeah.
to talk about it.
Wow.
Everyone's familiar with the Roswell crash. It was actually a Trojan horse by the Nibu, the gray extraterrestrials, in order to entice the military. Of course, the military sees new technology. Oh, how can we weaponize this against our adversaries? And so they couldn't figure out the advanced technology. So this was like a Trojan horse, you could say. Immediately after this, MJ-12 was created. Secretary of Navy James Forrestal was directed by Truman to set this group up.
What was their purpose, Dan?
Headed by Admiral Roscoe Hillenkotter, who warned about the dangers of secrecy about the UFO because it's so highly secret that it could be abused, and he was right. Also, all the same month, the CIA was created thanks to Allen Dulles pushing it, which Truman didn't want. The National Security Act and the U.S. Air Force was all created at the same time. And then they bring in under Project Paperclip Xavier Dorsch, Germany's top underground base expert, to start tunneling in New Mexico to create these deep underground military bases and that are linked together by these underground tunnels. And
Wow.
this is an old diagram, but it's quite extensive. And then James Forrestal has Admiral Byrd go down to attack the Nazi base. It's completely defeated. All the aircraft are wiped out because they had these advanced anti-gravity spacecraft with directed energy weapons. And so they had to limp back. Everybody was sworn to secrecy. James Forrestal wanted the public to know about this. And so MJ-12 murdered him. By throwing him out the hospital window. A authenticated annual report that got leaked, quote, the untimely death of Secretary Forrestal was deemed necessary and regrettable. CIA Act of 1949, right when I was born, they totally operate outside the law, and so they have no accountability. President Truman said, for some time I've been disturbed by the way the CIA has been diverted from its original assignment. It's become an operational, at times, policy-making arm of the government, and that it has become a government all its own in secret. They don't have to account to anybody. So Truman was quite disturbed the way Allen Dulles had taken the CIA completely isolated from constitutional oversight. And then Allen Dulles starts Operation Mockingbird, where the CIA is paying 400 media journalists in order to form the public's perceptions according to their agenda. They started way back then with the Washington Post, and they're still active today. ABC, NBC, CBS, Time, Newsweek, Associated Press, United Press International, Reuters, all the, and which has expanded considerably since then. This is how they kept us technologically retard it while the Nazis advanced with anti-gravity or going off planet. They have, very advanced technology. And I spent 10 years meeting with scientists, inventors, going around the planet. And many of them received national security orders. I had energy devices that I was, Dr. Greer set up a corporation. I volunteered to be a technical advisor. So, 6,000 of these have been issued, which have to do with, here's an interesting list. If you have any of these things and you put a patent in, the Sensitive Application Warning System will refuse your patent under the guise of national security. The national security order says that your invention has been deemed to be a detriment to the national security of the United States. Therefore, you cannot share it with anyone. And anybody you shared it with, you have to tell us who they are. And this is some of the things. Anti-gravity devices. Of course, the Nazis have anti-gravity, but we're still using rockets, right? Free energy, tachyons, etc. It's free energy has been around for a long time, but it's been suppressed. And they want to make sure that we don't live too long, because the longer you live, the more you put together the dots together things. Methods or compositions for prolonging life or preventing aging. So they want to make sure you die young.
And that's no good for the sick care system either, is it?
And treatments to enhance intelligence. I want to make sure you die young and stay stupid, so, and don't think about building a flying saucer, as Tesla shared with Otis Carr, who built an operational, as testified by Ralph Ring, who was one of the pilots that piloted it, and the FBI came in and took everything. So they flexed their muscles over the Capitol building in 1952 from craft coming up from Antarctica to intimidate.
Which was presumably just a show of power, was it?
Yeah. Their spacecraft can go rings around our jets and things of that nature. Yeah. And of course, there's nothing to this UFO reality, and they bring out Einstein along with these other guys by the CIA to deny in the Robinson panel that there's nothing to the UFO reality, swamp gas and all the other things. And they want to make sure that the military, like I could be thrown in 10 years in prison if I disclose under the Espionage Act because of this severe penalties that if you disclose UFO sightings, pilots or sailors, this was established back in 1954. And President Eisenhower has a first meeting with the Galactic Federation of Worlds and had planned on public disclosure, according to witnesses that were there, who, like Gerald Wright, who said it was his conviction that Eisenhower had planned on radio and television in May that year. And they warned him not to trust the little bastards, the Nibiru Greys, that was in orbit around our planet at that time. But here Alan Dulles, head of the new MJ-12, circumvents Eisenhower, and they sign a treaty with the Nibiru Greys. This is part of their invasion plan of the Nibiru. What they planned is, they said they were only going to do a couple of hundred people. The race is dying, and they need the DNA, and we'll give you technology if you give consent, And as soon as you give consent to them, then the Galactic Federation of Worlds can't do anything, right? And so what their plan was, they abducted millions and millions of people, as Professor David Jacobs and the other one, there's other people that authenticating that all these people have been under hypnosis and things that have been abducted. And what they've done is they gave them deep underground military facilities like the Dulce base, for example, and they're creating an army of millions, billions of these hybrids that had a human DNA, but mixed with a gray DNA, so that the see, the grays are different than we are. We're an individuated consciousness, whereas they're a hive mind. Like insects and birds
Like
and
ants.
yeah, like ants. Ants are a good and bees too.
Mm.
And so the Queen, which is in the Orion um, nebula, they plan to use these hybrids because the DNA can interface with them. And so basically, they would take over our planet with these hybrids. Uh, just recently, the Nibu, which has been dismantled, thank God, they had billions of these in a place out in space that
Mm.
was completely destroyed. Thank God. Anyway, it goes
I
into the
heard
note.
I heard Elena talk about that a few weeks ago,
Yeah,
and you just
yeah,
think,
yeah. They collapsed
thank,
the time bubble that was around it.
thank goodness they found that, eh?
And instead of disclosure in May, Prince, former Nazi SSO Prince Bernhard sets up the early secret Bilderberg meetings, which every year they control the perceptions in the media, along with Council of Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission. They work with psychological think tanks, all the usuals, Time, Washington Post, CNN, MSNBC, Washington Fox, all the major corporations, they have their executives in a top position that direct the narrative. So this is why, ever since 1955, President, CIA directors, heads of intelligence have been denied access, is because Eisenhower basically lost control to the Nazi Sakar Nibu alliance. And so from this point forward, even Eisenhower was denied access. We tried to look into Area 51. They they told him no, you can't see these operations. That they moved everything from Wright-Patterson over to Area 51 and S4, and so he threatened to invade them with the First Army if he didn't allow
Yeah.
two agents to come in and give him a report and that there was extraterrestrials there and so forth. Anyway, Eisenhower was the first, and ever since that time, our legal constitutional government has been denied access. This is kind of interesting, 'cause I'm interested in the occult and mind and psychology and how our creative powers affect reality. Now, why would somebody do this? In your neck of the woods, Professor Heinz Eisnick, he was the chairman psychology department, University of London. He wrote this letter in 1957 that there was this gigantic conspiracy, 30 major universities all over the world and hundreds of respected scientists, all the silence the truth about what they knew about the powers of human consciousness. Now, why would somebody go to such a gigantic effort? My suspicions is that part of this worldview warfare plan that the Nazis had. The Nazis were very much, as you know, into the occult. They knew the powers and the secret societies that are tied in with them. The Black Sun, the Virile Society, and some are good, some are not so good. That they know the power of human consciousness collectively to create reality. The secret societies. Let me get some beautiful water here. They know that human consciousness co-creates reality based on what the mind believes to be true and real. This process is amplified and instilled in the collective consciousness of the masses through the media. They are projecting what they want into the minds to co-creatively build that reality and the support. Hollywood is nothing but fake reality creators, right? They're actors, actresses, and they create. And the news media is the same thing. They create a fake reality. They control our perceptions by putting out what they believe as the reality. And so, there's a lot of stuff that they put out that is not the healthiest. And when you look at the presidents that are all, a lot of them connected to bloodlines and stuff, they're all 33rd degree Freemasons, Knights of Malta, Skull and Bones, such as Alan Dulles, Heinrich Himmler, General Reinhard Gehlen. You have David Rockefeller, Walt Disney, Gene Roddenberry, Sir Winston Churchill, you have even Joseph Stalin. You have all these people that, to be a 33rd degree Freemason, you can't do anything on your own. You have to be selected. You can only go up to the 32nd degree. So if they put all these key influential positions all over our planet in different areas, like media, entertainment, intelligence, military, world leaders, presidents, you basically have a control system that's controlled by these secret societies. As William Casey, Knight of Malta, said, we'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the public believes is false. And then going along chronologically, of NASA's created, and of course run by a Nazi SS, keeping us believing that we need rockets to overcome gravity, whereas the Nazis had achieved anti-gravity all the way back in 1934, as was revealed by Vladimir Trzhersky. Eisenhower attempted to warn about the misplaced powers and warranted influences, that only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry could protect our future liberties and freedoms. He was kind of cryptically warning about the infiltration of the Fourth Reich into the industrial military complex. President Kennedy wanted to disclose the UFO matter to the public in a top secret memorandum. This triggered Alan Dulles as MJ1. He wrote an assassination directive that was carried out 10 days later after this. And here you can see in this most horrible handwriting, Angleton has the MJ directive. Angleton was James Jesus Angleton. He was a protege under Alan Dulles. That they basically, in the MJ-12 assassination directive, Dulles said, Lancer, which was a code word for JFK, is looking into our matters, and this we must not allow for the continuance of our group. So MJ-12 basically hijacked everything, and so they're setting out assassination directives. And of course, Alan Dulles heads the Warren Commission on the assassination, which are all 33rd degree Freemasons. And then the CIA puts out the secret dispatch to all its agents that to label anybody who questions this as a conspiracy theorist, a very popular term still in use today. And then 1983, there was 50 media companies. The CIA started these secret meetings in Sun Valley, Idaho, and consolidated it down to 6 media corporations. It's much easier to control 6 than it is 50. And so today we have infiltration over several generations of a domestic enemy that is centrally controlling the information systems using psychological warfare to support an agenda that is against an unsuspecting public. But many are starting, to see the glitches in the matrix, so to speak. Once you can see the infiltrate, how it occurred and how the matrix of perception was created, then the propaganda that hid the truth is then destroyed by the disclosure of the truth. As Dr. Joseph Goebbels once said, propaganda becomes ineffective the moment we become aware of it. And so current disclosure conclusions are, back in the 1940s, because of the violation of the Prime Directive, the galactic... Now, it seems that in the beginning, the Air Force, MJ-12, and everybody was working with this surrender agreement that happened back in 1955 with the Sakar and the Nibu. But since there was a split back in the late 1940s between the Air Force and the Navy, the Galactic Federation of Worlds, the Nordics, as they're sometimes called, worked with the U.S. Navy to develop the Solar Warden space program that Gary McKinnon discovered. In 2001, as I said, I naively thought it was going to be a world-changing event, and that what Admiral Wilson wanted disclosed to the public was completely sanitized. You know, I was on CNN, CBS interviewed me, Fox, you know, all these different, they all did in lockstep to sanitize the information to make it sound like, oh, we want to have a congressional hearing on the reality of UFOs without disclosing the things that Admiral Wilson wanted disclosed. Now, in 2017, exactly almost 4 years ago, President Trump said, "We stand at the birth of a new millennium, ready to unlock the mysteries of space, to free the earth of the miseries of disease, and to harness the energies and industries of technologies of tomorrow." Now, his uncle, John Trump, was very much involved with the extraterrestrial issue, as some documents show that he was a high-level MIT scientist that was involved with electrostatics and things, and he probably shared a lot with his little nephew. And then, you know, in 2018, the Space Force was created. And Space Force is nothing more than a vehicle to bring out, after decades of deception, that our technological advancement is far greater than what is being revealed. And so they're going to start coming out with saying, oh, we just had a breakthrough. We discovered this anti-gravity method, you know, and all this stuff that kind of slowly acclimate the public from decades of deception. What is absolutely incredibly and wonderful is that the Earth Alliance, which is kind of the white hat faction of the secret space program on our planet, working with the Galactic Federation of Worlds hand in hand, they were able to kick out the Nibu Greys, the Draco Sakars, and the Nakwaffen, the Dark Fleet Nazis that had entered into an alliance with the Sakar. And that's quite wonderful, because that means that the upper part of the pyramid of the deep state was decapitated, because at the highest level was the extraterrestrial factor.
No easy task, I imagine, but I'm glad it happened.
Oh, incredible, you know, purging the deep underground military bases. They had to
Yeah.
liberate the moon. They had to liberate Mars, Ceres. I mean, it was a vicious battle, and we owe so much to them for what
Yes, we do.
they did.
Yes, we do.
In January of 2023, Elena, with her implant, assuming a lot of your listeners know who Elena Danan is, an emissary for the Galactic Federation of Worlds, was abducted when
Yeah.
she was 9 years old, and they had to repurpose the implant so she can see and hear. And so Thor Hanaredion, her contact, went to the Raven Rock Mountain Complex, the deep underground military base that's on the east coast of the United States, and he had General Van Herk. Now, Elena didn't know it was General Van Herk, but Dr. Michael Salla gave her a list of pictures of 40 command officers, and she was able to pick from what she saw, the correct one, which happened to be the head of NORAD,
It's
and the
amazing.
appropriate general to be receiving this disclosure plan, which, from what I understand, is this brilliant, genius plan that's going to help our planet move from our current state of pretty much cluelessness to awareness. And, you know, I thought this was interesting statement. I don't know how my text here, but when President Trump was elected, before that, in 2016, I find these statements interesting by two highly credible individuals. The former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, told Fox News that the establishment is scared of Trump because he's an outsider. He's not one of them. He's not part of the club. He's uncontrollable. He hasn't been through the initiation rites. He didn't belong to the secret society. As we looked earlier, all the presidents who have been part of the secret society, it all controlled, right? And then in 2020, Professor Haim Eshed, former head of the Israeli space security program, publicly disclosed that President Trump is working with the Galactic Federation of Worlds, who told him to hold back disclosure until the people of Earth are ready. So those are two very highly credible people with two very, very revealing statements. Now, the drones. Everybody's wondering about the drones they're seeing in the sky. Thor Hanaredian to Elena has revealed that the plasma orbs, the ones that shift and glow and do all kinds of incredible things, they're part of the Intergalactic Confederation. Now, the Intergalactic Federation, sometimes called the Seeders because they seed planets, they are highly advanced. The Galactic Federation of Worlds is, the Pleiadians are about 300 years more advanced than we are. And the Intergalactic Confederation is 20,000 years more advanced than they are. And the Galactic Federation of Worlds, they're so-called drones. They're like kind of remote cameras, and they monitor things and have amazing capabilities. They're metallic. There's these round metallic ones. Now, the other ones are the deep state not wanting to keep disclosure from happening in all ways possible, have launched these high-tech drones that some of them incorporate anti-gravity. And it's to help muddy the waters, the people don't know what's what. Now, according to U.S. Army military insider witness, JP, who I met at the Las Colorado conference, who's been, and he's provided evidence of his testimony to Dr. Michael Sal by photographic evidence of the craft and things like that. He's been working with him since 2008. He was taken to a deep underground military facility where he was shown these three large, huge cigar-shaped craft, and that the next phase in the disclosure, first is going to be these drones, right? The next phase is going to be these large cigar-shaped craft appearing in the skies all over our planet. Already there's been some sightings down in Brazil of these.
Brazil way, yeah. Mm.
And so that will be the next phase. Anyway, that goes into the Pleiadian crystal science. So let's see. I don't know. How are we doing on time? Oh my God, we almost sucked up a whole hour, didn't we?
But honestly, Dan, that was just absolutely amazing, because I think it's so important that people understand the history of what's been going on, especially since the Second World War, why everything has been intentionally kept from us, and what these control mechanisms are, because people need to know what's going on, because if there's anything that's vitally important in these coming 2 to 10 years, as the disclosure process really gathers pace and accelerates, is people need to know which factors are at play and who is doing what. So I love that, for example, that last slide there that you shared. We've got the Intergalactic Confederation, we've got the Galactic Federation, and then we've also got the Cabal, the deep underground projects doing their thing to try and obfuscate and confuse and throw people off course. So I think it's really, really important that we know that. So I really appreciate that. It was a really great presentation, just to give people a background into what's going on and why. Which is a lovely little segue into the slide that you showed about the crystal science, because one of the key things that's happening, as you've said earlier, is that technologies are coming out to that should have been out a long, long, long time ago, but it's something that you've been working on very closely for a very long time, with not just the incredible Dr. Marcel Vogel, but with Thor Han's younger brother, Jen Han, who's, if I remember rightly, his main role is terraforming planets.
He's on Mars right now on the Ares Prime base, and he's preparing. He just sent me a communication via Elena that they're preparing. Let's see. I could actually read that to you. It's a very short, but it's very revealing. We do question and answer exchanges, and
Via Elena, I presume.
yes, Elena relays through her quantum communication implant. I've been communicating with him since April of 2022. It was like 220 some pages in our communication log in a question answer format because of the prime directive. And I said to him, hello, my dear friend Jen Han. Once again, circumstances on Terra have created long delay between our exchanges. It's been a long time since, lots of stuff going on. From Elena's previous message, it sounds like you're quite busy performing operations on Tyr. Tyr is their name for planet Mars. Thank you for your time in addressing these questions. I know you must be extremely occupied with your Star Maker tasks at hand. Star Maker is their term for a person who terraforms a planet. He responded back on this month. He says, hello, my dear friend Dan. Greetings to you and your lady and the household of other sentient beings, our cat. I have been occupied with my work here at Ares Prime Station. It is from here that we centralize all operations of planetary engineering, or terraforming, as you may call it. I always have time for you. We have been very busy here, if I may say so, with the rush to prepare for the arrival of the new colonies from Terra in the next 2 years. It's like Elon's talking about going to Mars. He's busy getting the situation. We must prepare the biodomes and facilities with organic fertilizer soil so that they can settle immediately and be autonomous. So I just thought I'd share that with the audience.
That's absolutely. So, it should be world changing, that information. Very much like the 2001 press gathering. This should also be equally as world changing, but for the reasons that you've already shared in the previous presentation, the people who control the media are never going to share that. But I think, thankfully, the momentum of disclosure and people's awakening process since the fake situation of 2020 that was rolled out, the pandemic of 2020 was rolled out. I think that it's just becoming harder and harder and harder for them to hold this back, and that's one of the things that I aim to do with this channel, is to share this information to as many people as possible, because it's time for us all to wake up and realize that not just are we not alone, but we have a huge, huge family out there, and there's so much that's been kept from us and hidden from us that it's now time to reveal.
It's a think tank, psychological warfare. That's why in the United States, and probably in your country as well, that there's
globally,
a division,
I would imagine,
because there's a perception created. Being a broadcast engineer, I'm very familiar with the FCC regulations, Federal Communications Commission, which states that if you do anything that's misleading to the public, that you can revoke your station license or network license. But in 2013, Obama signed the National Defense Authorization Act that made the use of propaganda against the American people legal. So all these things need to be looked at. The mainstream media is indeed the enemy of the people. And unless it is giving accurate, truthful, unbiased information, it's only serving an agenda that's not in the interest of the people. So, we have some little time here. I could go into the crystal science, but go into it in a very quick way, because you can
I would
imagine.
love to. Yeah, I would love to, Dan. If you have time your end, I'm more than happy to carry on, because you've set the scene of what's happened, and now this gives us a view into what's possible moving forward.
It condensed 3 years of communications with a Pleiadian scientist. Yeah, I have gathered together a science team to help me. I don't know everything, so I have a scientist in Switzerland who's brilliant, another
Yeah.
scientist in Paris, France, and another one here in the US, that together they work together with me to take this technology understanding and to develop practical technology that can be used on our planet for beneficial things, such as, healing and actually altering the structure of reality, so it's very interesting. Okay, so here we go into
Yeah, please do.
a very brief, without going into too many details. I'm going to be skipping a lot of slides.